welcome to government class. This is Unit 13, Part 5, and we're going to finish up our discussion of political parties today. Starting with party identification, right? Party identification is meaning that someone identifies with one party or another, all right? And that starts at an early age, and we call it political socialization, all right? And political socialization is the process that we go through our lives of choosing a party or to be an independent. We don't want to be a part of a party, so we're going to be an independent. When going through our early years, children are most influenced by parents for party identification. Well over the 50% mark. I'm not sure the exact percentage. I'm going to take a guess that somewhere around 80 to 90% of children, when they start voting, are going to start in the same party as their parents. So if their parents are Republicans, they'll be Republicans. If their parents are Democrats, they'll be Democrats. If their parents are independents, they'll be independents, right? And so forth. So you got the idea there. Right? However, the choice does and can change. It doesn't always change. Some people will be lifelong members of a party. The choice can change as we grow older because we change, right? And so some of the things that our choice is influenced by: marriage. You get married to somebody and they are of the other party, or maybe they're an independent, maybe they sway you to that side or the other. Right? Economic status. As we get older, we tend to have more money. We start to look at the economy a little differently, especially if we're getting closer to retirement. We start thinking about how we want our portfolio to do so we can retire with a nice sum of money. Right? And then major events. If there's a major event that occurs and it's like, oh, I didn't like the way that my party handled it, I'm going to switch to the other way. So that's another influence as well. There are also group affiliations. Groups have tendencies when it comes to party identification. There's a lot of different groups out there, and here's a list of them, all right? So geographic location. Certain parts of the country tend to be one party or the other. Okay? When looking at the country as a whole, when you look more towards the cities and urban areas, there tends to be a higher percentage of Democrats. When you look to the more rural areas and the center of the country, tend to be more Republican. Right? And even in our own state of Pennsylvania, you can see it very clearly. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh have high percentage of members of the Democratic Party, where the rest of the state tends to have high numbers of Republican members. Gender has an influence. All right, more women are Democrat, more men are Republican. Right? Race and ethnicity. So race, ethnicity. Your country of origin. If you're an immigrant or your family's a recent immigrant, that all has influence on which party you go with, because there are going to be different policies that they follow. Right? Age. All right, depending on your age. As we get older, again, we change, and so your age has a big influence on your party identification, right? And then there are the social and economic factors. All these change, and they're all tendencies, and it varies a little bit. It's not always an exact science with this. Those who are of African descent tend to be more Democrat, all right? You can split up some of the ethnicity. If somebody is an American who's of Cuban descent, they tend to be Republican. Right? Age, somewhere in there, as we get older, it varies, but the older you are, you tend to be a little bit more Democrat because they have always been more protective of Social Security. Right? Whereas if you are a little bit more well-to-do and you're not depending on Social Security, see how they go together, you tend to be a little bit more Republican. Religion is a big factor. All right, those that are of the evangelical, Protestant evangelical Christians tend to be Republican, whereas Catholics tend to be Democrat. So religion plays a big part in it. And then marital status. Single people tend to be more Democrat. Married people tend to be more Republican. So it's just a matter of views and how they are influencing your decision on who you're going to vote for. And again, a lot of people, that when it goes to the voting, it goes out the window because you may like a candidate that's not with the party that you are identifying with, right? And so, I think a lot of Americans really are independents. However, the fact that we only have two parties, we we more likely align with one or the other. And then some of it's an influence on whether you live in a state that has closed primaries or open primaries. In an open primary state, independents get to vote in the primaries. In a closed primary state like Pennsylvania, you have to be a member of a party to vote for that party's primary. Right? So those are influences as well. Third parties. In the U.S., small parties do exist, third parties do exist. Sometimes they form around specific issues. The best known third parties are the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. They've never had a great deal of success in running for candidates. Right? There are barriers that exist that keep them from succeeding. One, we use a winner-take-all system. So when you're talking about the presidency, if you win, there could be a three-way race and say it's really close. You might not get 50% of the vote, all right, in a particular state, but when you win the state with 47% of the vote, you get all the electoral votes, all right? And so it makes it very hard for third parties to succeed in that type of system. And so they're kind of always out there on the fringe. Right? The big two parties, the Republicans and Democrats, they'll take on an issue. All right, if an issue is becoming important enough, they'll take on that issue to get that smaller party's voters. It's like, oh, well, I don't really want to be a part of this one because Party A over here is doing it too, and they have a better chance of winning. Okay? And I've seen that in my lifetime with different things. Back in the 90s, the 92 election, Ross Perot ran for the presidency as an independent, and a lot of people voted for him. They liked what he was doing because he was separate from the parties. But he was really similar to one of the parties, and he ended up splitting the vote from the party that he was closest to, and the other party won. Right? And you do see that sometimes. Happened again in 2000 with the Green Party. All right? The Green Party candidate had a big influence because they took votes away from one of the candidates.